The checkbook sat on my kitchen counter, and I could not look at it. 3 days it had been sitting there. Maybe 4. I kept walking past it like I did not see it, but I saw it every time. $42. Same as last year. Same as the year before that. But this time something was different. My granddaughter had told me not to send it. She did not ask. She did not suggest. She grabbed my sleeve in the produce section at the grocery store 3 weeks ago, and she whispered it so close I felt her breath on my ear. "Grandma, do not send Dad any more money." Her fingers were cold from holding frozen peas for me. "Just follow him next Tuesday. Just see." I did not know what that meant. Part of me did not want to know. But Tuesday already happened. And now I cannot stop thinking about what I saw. The checkbook is still there. The pen is next to it. All I have to do is write the date and sign my name. $40,000 to Marcus. Like I have done every October since my daughter died. 7 years of checks. 7 years of believing I was doing the right thing. But Imani whispered in my ear, and everything I thought I knew started to crack. Maybe I should start earlier. Maybe I should tell you about my daughter first. Her name was Nadine. She died when she was 34 years old. Brain aneurysm. One day she was laughing in my kitchen, and the next morning I got a phone call from the hospital. Marcus called me. He said I needed to come right away. I drove there thinking maybe they were wrong. Maybe it was something else. Something fixable. But when I got there, Nadine was already gone. Marcus was sitting in a hallway chair with his head in his hands. My granddaughter Imani was standing against the wall. She was 10 years old. She looked so small standing there. So lost. I thought the world had ended. I suppose it had. 2 weeks after the funeral, Marcus called me again. His voice was different that time. Quieter. Shaking. He said he did not know how he was going to manage everything. He said Nadine had handled all the bills, the schedules, the school forms, everything. And now he was looking at private school tuition and a mortgage payment and medical bills from the hospital, and he did not see how he could do it alone. He cried on the phone. I had never heard a man cry like that before. I told him I would help. I did not think about it long. I just said it. Because that is what you do when your daughter dies and her family is falling apart. You help. So I sent him $40,000. I thought that was what Nadine would have wanted. I thought I was keeping her family together. Keeping Imani safe. I sent it again the next October. And the next. Every year it became part of my routine. Part of how I honored my daughter's memory. I budgeted for it. I planned for it. It felt right. Until 3 weeks ago when Imani grabbed my sleeve and whispered in my ear. And I realized maybe I had been wrong about everything. She is 17 now. 17 is different from 10. 10 is too young to see certain things. 17 sees everything. We were in the produce section at the grocery store in Durham. I was sorting through collard greens, looking for the ones without too many holes. Imani was standing next to me with her arms folded across her chest. That was how her mother used to stand when she had something difficult to say. Then Imani reached out and touched my wrist. Light. Uncertain. She leaned close and whispered, "Do not send Dad any more money." I kept sorting greens. I did not look at her. I think I was afraid of what I would see in her face if I did. Just follow him next Tuesday. You need to see where he goes. I put the greens back in the bin. My hands were shaking, but I tried not to let her notice. We finished shopping in silence. We loaded the groceries into my car. We drove back to my house and she helped me put everything away and neither of us mentioned it again. But when she left that evening, I sat in my living room with the lights off. And I tried to remember the last time I had really looked at Marcus. Not as Nadine's husband. Not as Imani's father. Just as a man I was sending $40,000 to every year. I could not remember. What did I actually know about him? He worked in pharmaceutical sales. That was what he always said. He traveled often. Conferences, client dinners, hotel rooms in cities I could not name. Nadine used to complain about it sometimes, but she also said he was ambitious and she liked that about him. I never questioned any of it. Men work. Men travel. Men provide. That is what I told myself. But Imani's voice stayed with me all week. Every time I walked past the checkbook, I heard her whisper, "Follow him and see." I told myself she must have misunderstood something. Teenagers get ideas in their heads. They overhear half a conversation and fill in the rest with assumptions. I told myself I would write the check like I always did, and everything would be fine. So I wrote it. I know that sounds strange, but I had already budgeted for it. I had already transferred the money into my checking account. And I think part of me was afraid that if I did not send it, then everything Imani said would become real. As long as I kept sending the money, I could pretend she was wrong. I wrote the check on Friday afternoon. My hand shook when I signed my name, but I signed it anyway. I put it in an envelope. I wrote Marcus's address on the front. I walked to the mailbox at the end of my street, and I stood there for a long time with the envelope in my hand. Then I dropped it in the slot. But I could not stop thinking about what Imani had said. Follow him. See where he goes. Tuesday morning I woke up at 6 and I could not go back to sleep. I lay in bed staring at the ceiling and telling myself I was not really going to do this. I was not going to follow my son-in-law like some suspicious wife in a television drama. But at 8:30 I was getting dressed. At 9 I was in my car. At 9:15 I was parked 2 blocks from the house Marcus and Nadine bought when Imani was 4 years old. It was a brick house with a front porch. Nadine had loved that porch. She used to decorate it every season. Pumpkins in the fall. Christmas lights in winter. Flowers in spring. She said a porch was where a family gathered. Where life happened. Now the porch was empty. Just 2 chairs sitting there that looked like no one had sat in them in years. I sat in my car and waited. I did not know what I was waiting for. Maybe nothing. Maybe Imani had been wrong and I would sit here for an hour, and then go home feeling foolish but relieved. Marcus came out of the house at 9:40. He was wearing a navy suit. The same kind he used to wear when he took Nadine out for their anniversary. He got in his car and backed out of the driveway slowly. I waited until he turned the corner at the end of the street. Then I started my car and I followed him. I had seen people do this in movies, but I did not know if I was doing it right. I stayed far back. Maybe too far. I kept thinking he was going to notice me in his rearview mirror. I kept thinking I should turn around and go home. But I did not turn around. He did not drive toward the highway. He did not drive toward the office park where I thought his company was located. He drove through downtown Durham, past the restaurants where Nadine and I used to have lunch, past the library where I took Imani when she was small. 20 minutes later he turned into a parking lot I had never seen before. It was a townhouse complex. New construction. The kind of place young professionals rent when they want something modern and easy to maintain. Clean brick. Black shutters. Small front lawns that did not need much care. Marcus parked near the back of the lot. He got out of his car. He walked across the parking lot to one of the units on. Coffee still in it. A TV remote. It looked lived in. It looked like someone's home. Maybe 2 people's home. I stepped back from the window. My chest felt tight. I walked back to my car. I got in. I sat there. I did not start the engine. I could not. I just sat there trying to make sense of what I had seen. Marcus came out of the townhouse 2 hours later. He was carrying a paper bag from a deli. He got in his car. He put on his sunglasses. He backed out of the parking space and drove away. I did not follow him this time. I could not make myself do it. I just sat there until the parking lot was quiet again. Then I drove home. When I pulled into my driveway, Imani was sitting on my front porch steps. She must have walked over from school. Her backpack was next to her. She was wearing her school uniform. She looked up when she heard my car, and I could see in her face that she had been waiting for me. She stood up as I got out of the car. "You followed him." It was not a question. She already knew. I nodded. I could not speak yet. "You saw it." I nodded again. She looked down at her sneakers. She was quiet for a long moment. Then she said, "I found a credit card statement about 4 months ago. It came to the house by mistake. I thought it was mine, so I opened it." She stopped. I waited. There were charges on it I did not recognize. Furniture stores. A grocery store I had never heard of. A place that sells rugs. I looked up the addresses. They were all near that townhouse complex. "Why did you not tell me sooner?" Her eyes filled with tears, but she did not let them fall. She said, "Because I thought maybe I was wrong. I thought maybe there was some explanation. And I was afraid if I told you then you would stop sending the money, and we would lose you too." I sat down next to her on the porch steps. I put my arm around her shoulders. I told her she would never lose me. No matter what happened, she would never lose me. But inside I felt something breaking that I did not know how to fix. That night after Imani went home, I sat at my kitchen table, and I pulled out all my bank statements. 7 years of them. I went through each one slowly. I matched the dates I had sent checks to Marcus with the dates of large purchases he had made. The pattern was there. It had always been there. I just had not wanted to see it. For weeks after I sent the first check, there was a down payment. $15,000. At the time I had thought it must be for Imani's school tuition. Maybe it was. Maybe part of it was. But not all of it. The next year there were purchases at furniture stores, home goods stores, a rug company. I had assumed those were for the house Nadine had loved. For Imani's room. For making the home feel complete after Nadine was gone. But they were not. Every October I sent a check. Every November there were new purchases. Year after year. The same pattern. I had been so certain I was helping. Nadine died, and I thought if I could just send enough money then maybe her family would stay intact. Maybe Imani would still have the life Nadine had wanted for her. I thought money could hold things together. I thought it could replace what grief had taken. But Marcus had not been grieving the way I thought he was. He had been building something else. Somewhere else. With someone else. And I had paid for it. For 7 years I had paid for it. I sat at that table until almost midnight going through the statements. Then I closed them all, and I put them away, and I sat there in the dark trying to understand how I had missed this for so long. The next morning I called Marcus. I told him we needed to talk. He said he was busy. I said it could not wait. There was a long pause on the other end of the line. Then he said he could meet me for lunch. We met at a diner halfway between his house and mine. It was a place Nadine and I used to go sometimes. I had not been back since she died. Walking in felt strange. Wrong. Marcus was already there when I arrived. He was sitting in a booth near the back. He looked tired. Or maybe he always looked tired and I had just stopped noticing. He ordered coffee when the waitress came. I did not order anything. My stomach felt too tight. We sat there in silence for a moment. Then I asked him about the townhouse. His face did not move. He took a sip of his coffee. He put the cup down carefully. Then he smiled a little. It was not a real smile. He said, "I do not know what you are talking about. I followed you there on Tuesday. I saw you go inside. I saw the woman who came out." The smile disappeared. He looked down at his coffee cup. He turned it slowly in his hands. He said, "It is not what you think." I waited. I did not say anything. I wanted to hear what he would say next. He said, "Nadine has been gone for 7 years. 7 years. Everyone expects me to stay frozen in that moment forever. But I am still here. I am still alive. I needed something that felt separate. Something that felt like mine. Did you use my money to buy it? He did not answer right away. He looked out the window. He looked at the menu on the table. He looked everywhere except at me. Then he said, I needed a place where I could breathe. That is not an answer, Marcus. He leaned back in the booth. He crossed his arms. He said, Imani has everything she needs. She goes to a good school. She has a nice home. She has food and clothes and everything a kid her age should have. She is fine. That is not the point. He said, you wanted to feel needed. Do not act like this was just about helping Imani. You wanted to believe you were keeping Nadine alive somehow. You wanted to believe you were still part of this family. Those words landed hard. Because maybe there was some truth in them. Maybe I did want to feel needed. Maybe I did want to believe I was keeping Nadine's memory alive by sending money every year. But that did not make what he did right. I told him I would not be sending any more money. Not this year. Not next year. Not ever. He nodded slowly. He picked up his coffee cup and took another sip. Then he put it down and said, I figured you would say that eventually. Then he said, Imani is almost 18 anyway. She will be fine. She will understand. I wanted to tell him that Imani already understood far more than he realized. That she had been the one to warn me. That she had been watching him for months. But I did not say any of that. I just stood up and I walked out of the diner. When I got home, I sat down at my kitchen table and I wrote Imani a letter. I told her I was sorry. Sorry for not seeing what was happening sooner. Sorry for thinking that money could fix what only attention and presence could address. I told her I loved her. I told her I would always be there for her no matter what. I put the letter in an envelope and I left it on the counter next to the checkbook. I did not seal it. I thought maybe I would rewrite it later. Maybe I would find better words. But that evening Imani came over. She saw the letter sitting there, and she picked it up and read it without asking. When she finished reading, she looked up at me. Her eyes were wet, but she was not crying. She said, Grandma, you did not do anything wrong. You were trying to help. I told her that trying is not always the same as succeeding. She said, sometimes it is close enough. We sat together on my couch for a long time without talking. Then she told me she had been thinking about going to college out of state. Somewhere far from Durham. Somewhere that did not remind her of her mother or her father, or any of this. I told her that sounded like a good idea. I told her I would help her however I could. She said, not with money. Just be here. I told her I would always be here. 3 months went by. Then one evening Marcus called me. His voice sounded different. Smaller somehow. He said the woman had moved out of the townhouse. He said things had not worked out the way he thought they would. He did not ask for money. But I could hear the question underneath everything he was saying. I told him I hoped he figured things out. Then I hung up the phone. Imani decided to stay with Marcus for her last year of high school. She said she wanted to finish where she started. But she came to my house almost every evening after school. We cooked dinner together. We talked about her college applications. We talked about what she wanted to study. We talked about Nadine too, but not the way we used to. Before it always felt like mourning. Now it felt more like remembering. Like honoring someone without pretending they were still here. One evening while we were making dinner, Imani asked me if I was angry at Marcus. I thought about that question for a long time. I stirred the pot on the stove. I watched the steam rise. Then I told her I was sad more than angry. Sad that I had spent 7 years thinking money was what Imani needed when what she really needed was for someone to pay attention. To ask questions. To notice when things were not right. She said, you notice now. I did. I do. I just wish I had noticed sooner. The checkbook is still sitting on my kitchen counter. I have not written a check to Marcus since that day at the diner. But I did open a savings account in Imani's name. I put money in it when I can. Not $40,000. Just what feels right. What I can afford without hurting myself. When she turns 18, the account will be hers. No one else will have access to it. No conditions. No strings. She does not know about it yet. I will tell her when the time is right. Sometimes I drive past the house Nadine and Marcus bought together. The house with the porch Nadine loved so much. The porch is still empty most days. Just those 2 chairs sitting there unused. I used to think that porch meant something important. Nadine talked about wanting a porch for years. She said it was where families gathered. Where life happened. Where memories were made. But life happened in other places too. In grocery stores. In parking lots outside townhouses I never knew existed. In whispered warnings I almost ignored. Imani is filling out college applications now. She talks about different campuses and majors and roommates. She sounds hopeful. She sounds free in a way she did not sound 6 months ago. And I think maybe that is what Nadine would have wanted most. Not the perfect house or the decorated porch. Just Imani being free to become whoever she is meant to be. I do not know if I did the right thing all those years. I thought I was helping. I thought I was honoring my daughter by taking care of her family. Maybe I was helping in some small way. Maybe I was not. But I know this now. I am paying attention. When Imani talks to me, I do not just hear her words. I hear what she is not saying. I notice what she is showing me without speaking. And maybe that is what I should have been doing from the beginning. The checkbook is still on the counter. But I do not reach for it anymore. My name is Gloria. I am 58 years old. Thank you for listening.